Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Today we're going to talk a little bit about drinking and drowning, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about boat life at the marina. One of the things about being at a marina is that people around you may not be liveaboards. Probably most of the people around you are not liveaboards. So while you, at 8 o'clock in the morning, are getting ready to do your stuff, doing your day, you're working on today's a good day weather-wise to do some teak oiling or a boat wash or whatever. You know, you've got maintenance all the time. You know, time to raise the sails up and fix the clue. You know, that's C-L-E-W, not C-L-U-E. And then you've got people who come out for the weekend, people who come out for a couple days every month, people who come out for vacation, people who are seasonal liveaboards. You know, summer vacation for a teacher, live on the boat for 2 months and then go back to the school. For those people, 8 o'clock in the morning might be drinking time. If they are weekenders, if they're people who come out for 2 days and they happen to show up at 8 in the morning because it's a 3-hour drive and they decided to make it before traffic, so they left at 5 in the morning, and it's a 3-hour drive for most of the people out here, 3 to 6 hours. This is not a city area. 8 o'clock in the morning, you get to the boat, you drink. You get to the boat, you have a drink. You may not drink a lot, but you get to the boat, you have a drink. And, you know, socially, if you're there, you might start drinking too at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's something to be aware of, that living aboard at a marina is different, and you may want to involve yourself in different habits. Well, one of our dockmates decided to drink until he fell off the dock the other day. And, you know, he's a heavy drinker. He's met me for the first time 3 times, just because he wasn't sober enough to remember that he had met me. And I have met him sober 0 times. I have seen him at a state of not crazy drunk once. And I mean crazy in the sense of wholly touched by God crazy. He's a very active drunk, but he's got the crazy eyes. He's got the different brain. You know, I go through these phases all the time. You know, sit down, meditate for 5 minutes, boom, everything pops. You know, meditate for 2 hours, and it's a little bit of a different story. You know, and he's a fun guy. He's a very active drunk. He doesn't finish much. You know, so this day he was extra drunk, and, you know, he has some piece of machinery over here on the dock that he's taken apart, some piece of machinery over by his boat that he's taken apart. He's smoking some chicken on a smoker grill, and he's walking around and he's being social, and he's just extra drunk, and he just stops in the middle of the dock and falls over like a log, straight down, all the way down, so 7 feet down, like no floating, no nothing, just really weird, because it's not normally how people do this. And, you know, he gets rescued, he gets out, he gets CPR until the rescue squad, the volunteer, not paramedics, because we're so far out, there's no paramedics. There's no hospital, there's no urgent care within 45 minutes of here. You know, he goes down, he comes up, there's CPR until the rescue squad gets there, and then they CPR him all the way for the 30-minute hair-raising ride to the 30-minute at their speed to the thing where they can get him to another ride, and they eventually get him 2 hours away to Richmond, and he lives. He does live, okay, yay, although I can't imagine how, because he was down for a couple minutes and he was being CPR'd, rescue breathing, rescue compressions for quite a while. And so anyway, he lived. You know, I still haven't met him sober. I have seen him slightly less drunk 1 time since, but not sober. And it wasn't DTs either. He was drunk. So be careful. This lifestyle can actually get to you if you're not aware of how that works. I don't drink very often. I've gone through phases where I drink a lot more. I've never been a drinker as such. I've just been a partier at times, like a social partier. So, whatever. I'm not a teetotaler, but I probably will be for the next couple of months because I have some dietary stuff that I want to try. You know, it's not terribly important to me. But it's, you know, I understand the Jungian group subconscious. The sun sets and the weather's right and everything is right with the trees and the leaves are starting to change and you're like, yeah, right now is time for a glass of really good scotch on the docks. And yeah, like I can get into that, and sometimes I'll do it. But I don't think about it a whole lot. When I lived in Spain, of course, there's coffee with alcohol just by default. Like the creamers are going to be something like the equivalent of a Bailey's or a Carolyn's or a Heather Cream. Ponche, spice brandy liqueur in your coffee is just like the normal thing to do. It's actually like going to Starbucks and getting syrups. There's just stuff in your coffee. You know, you drink wine with every meal. You drink wine mixed with soda water or Casera 7-Up, basically. A slightly less sweet 7-Up. All day. It's a normal thing. So, but you don't get drunk. Like, it's not quite the same. So anyway, one thing to think about when you are living aboard, especially at a marina or in a boating environment where there's a lot of social activity, a lot of people coming to visit their boats, is how much drinking is part of the culture and how much that can affect you when you live in the culture 24/7 instead of 2 weeks out of every year. Stuff to think about. Let's see. Living on the marina, living at 30 feet. So a couple things to consider if you're looking at moving aboard. Look at your systems. We've been struggling a little bit with improvements. Not struggling. Yeah, sometimes it's struggling. So one of the ways our boat is built is that it has a very high cruiser style cockpit, coaming and steps and everything set up. It's designed to be out racing to Bermuda, open ocean racing, where water comes over the side quite a bit and you don't want it to get into the cabin. That means that cabin access is less good. Also, the moving around room in the cockpit is less good. So it's something to consider, something to look at. You know, a Catalina 30 has far less storage room. 1/3, 1/4 of the storage room that we have for supplies to go sailing. But it probably has 1.5 times, 2 times in the cockpit the space that we have on a 34-foot boat just for living. So, and access and comfort, so something to consider. Because sailboats are cheap, and it's just the way to go right now for a lot of people who are in the bohemian lifestyle. I have been called bohemian on the forums lately because I don't want to spend $100,000 on a boat. Whatever. So boom tents are your friend, biminis are your friend, hardtop biminis, like figuring out a way to make a harder top for the cockpit it's a pretty big deal. So if you're doing that, I would suggest you look at how to make your cockpit into a functional living room for all weather. That's the key. That's probably the key. Our bimini is too small to cover. It's a great sunshade when you're standing at the helm sailing, day sailing, or, you know, cruising. But if you want to hang out in the cockpit at anchor in the marina or something, the bimini is too small to handle a shower, a rainstorm. It doesn't cover to the back of the cockpit. It doesn't cover forward to the Dodger. There's no extension there. It doesn't cover the sides. There are parts, the way the bimini is, it's narrow enough that the cockpit gets wider than the bimini towards the front end. So rain going straight down will drip off the bimini into the cockpit. You know, the basic answer to that is to find a white tarp. Don't get a blue one. Don't get, don't. It's just it's a looks thing more than anything. But get a tarp and fit it. You know, tape the corners, do whatever, fit it over the bimini so it goes down to the lifeline stanchions, so you have at least a little bit of runoff outside of the cockpit. You know, something to consider. You want your cockpit to be a functional living room. This is the key to living aboard, marina or on the hook, but especially in the marina. Key to living aboard is to make the space above decks livable. Now you've got a foredeck on the boat, and that you can put a hammock on there. You can have a high mounted shade tarp or shade sail. You can actually rig a sail as a shade sail. You know, various ways to do that. The foredeck, you want to be able to walk around your sides. It's one thing to look at. The boom tent, so if your boom comes way back in your cockpit, a boom tent with an extension to go over the back end of the boat is a really, really fine idea. It reduces your visibility sometimes if you bring the ends down a lot. Like your ability to look out at the world and the ability of the world to look in at you. So it's worth considering how you want to do that. If you have a bimini, then you're going to want to either extend it, expand it, do the tarp thing. Sewing a tarp or riveting a tarp or putting grommets on a tarp, taping and reinforcing. Shaping the tarp is actually a really fine way to make things a little bit better. You know, I'm working on that right now, the shaping aspects. I'm not doing too much because I think hardtop on the bimini is coming sooner rather than later. You know, there's not a lot. There's not a lot to starting the project. You need a bimini frame, and you need to be able to reinforce that frame, and you need some plywood, and then you need epoxy and fiberglass and gel coat and all of that. But the initial work and making it look halfway decent doesn't take all that much. You know, a couple days of the right weather. You want, if you do a hard top on the cockpit, the reason I'm talking about that, if you do a hard top on the cockpit, you end up with the ability to make side covers that have the clear plastic, visqueen or isinglass, whatever your clear vinyl is, built in. Okay, so you can stitch that together. You can get that to work. You can start with tarps and greenhouse clear plastic, and some Velcro, and you can actually make it and get your patterns figured out and get it figured out how you want it, and then have a proper, you know, $2,000 system stitched up if you want to, or go with a heavier tarp system that looks professional and learn to sew. Anyway, cockpit, you want it to be livable, so that means the rain has to fall outside of the cockpit. If it's going to get cold, it definitely means that you're going to need some cover around the cockpit. So you want, wherever your bimini stops, whether it's a soft top or a hard top, you want to have a row of snaps or hooks or something so that you can put up a surround. And of course, the fancier and the better this looks, the better off you are socially in the marina. You know, it's just better to have it look good. That's the thing. This is where a lot of people lose living space in a sailboat. This is much more of a sailboat problem than it is a motor vessel problem. On a motor vessel, you may have a large back deck, and yeah, bimini or a cover or something for that is important, but people tend to build those differently because they don't care about the windage. They don't care about the wind penalty. Sailors, especially modern sailors, care so much more about efficiency in general that they lose track of the cruising, living, comfort aspects. You know, one of the just tow rails, just the thing that keeps stuff from rolling off the deck. it is so miniaturized to prevent the wind penalty, the penalty of the wind blowing against it, and because of racing culture and sailboats, that quite often it doesn't do anything. It won't even stop your phone from sliding off the deck. And that's too much. Whereas traditionally, you'd have a bulwark that was, 8, 10, 16 inches high. Well, that's too much wind penalty. So you don't even get 4 inches anymore. And if you do, it's going to be kind of like a slotted aluminum or a mesh kind of thing, where it's made so that the air goes through it as much as possible. So on a motorboat, motor vessel, you're not going to have the same concerns with your cockpit. People will tend to have higher bulwarks, more hard tops, bigger biminis, and sailboats, a lot of the stuff is just minimized as much as possible. Well, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to live with that. You're going to have to build something around that. PVC frames on your boom of your mast to make tents, and they can go from just a little bit of bend to all the way down bends. Those are great. Making the bimini larger, making sure that it covers the whole cockpit, doing the cutout for your backstay so it goes all the way back. Those are really good ideas, because then it's easier to put snap-on siding when the weather demands it. The other answer to that is to go with a hard top. I prefer the idea of a hard top because I think that you can do more with it. Some people like soft tops and then put solar panels on top of that because it provides rigidity to the structure, because the panels themselves have frames. But you still have the problem of the canvas leaking, wearing. Canvas never lasts that long, and it likes to mildew. All of it likes to mildew. There's a coating that will get you through the first year, and then it just doesn't always stay. So consider that if you don't have a livable cockpit on a sailboat, you have lost 8 to 10 feet of the length of that sailboat. So if you're living on a 30-foot boat, you are now living on a 20-foot boat. You're now living in a small van with a pointy end instead of a large RV. It's a big difference. And if you do the hard tops and you do it right, you can actually move a lot of stuff outside, like your coffee maker. 4 seasons. You can run it summer, winter, outside, in a rainstorm. Stuff will stay dry if you do just a little bit of work, a little bit of effort. And that's a pretty big deal, especially for, just working and lounging and having 2 spaces. If you don't live alone, having 2 spaces where people can hang out, You don't always want to look at each other on a couch every time you're doing anything. Small spaces, because you have the whole world as your backyard, but you have to get off the boat to do that. It's not quite the same as van life, where you just open the door and there it is. Not quite the same. There's a little more effort, especially if you're on the hook. If you're on anchor, then it takes a dinghy to get out of your front door. That's, a little bit different. Marina life, usually you have access to the docks to walk around. If you're sneak aboard, or if you're in an environment where the dockmaster's like, look, you live aboard, but you got to be chill and down low about it. You don't hang out on the dock so much. So, but your cockpit is fine, because if you're in the cockpit, you're kind of doing boat work, or at least people assume you're doing boat work. So, that's about all. Make your cockpit livable, and don't drink so much that you fall to the bottom of the marina. Dude, stay sideways.